Hello, and welcome to a presentation on the Software Development Life Cycle. In this presentation, we'll be in the world of Miencraft and delving into the mind of Steve. Defining the problem and identifying the scope of the new system. Steve has a problem. He's alone in a home with no one to trade. He thinks creating a larger building close to a village where he lives should bring in some local nomads. Steve believes this is a viable solution and thinks solving this problem is best accomplished by going through the Software Development Life Cycle, also commonly referred to as the SDLC. Planning, also known as the problem domain. Steve now has identified his problem. He needs to create a plan of what it will take to make a large building to create trade-in and house villagers. Feasibility study. When there's an idea on the table, it's good practice to do some research on the topic of what the idea requires. Having estimates such as the rough order of magnitude, budgetary, and definitive will give a better picture of the scope of work and what it will take to create it. Making a schedule. In this stage, creating a timeline of milestones to reach will allow you to complete the project on time. Creating a resource plan. Looking at all the equipment, tools, and resources one needs to reasonably meet the needs of the project. In this example, Steve needs to have 2 players who can gather resources and build a structure between them. These players also need a crafting table, a furnace, and tools for gathering and for crafting the building. Budget. Create a budget. This is the dollars and cents of the project. How much money will be needed to get the final product out? What sort of resources are needed to be pulled from or to get to keep this project rolling forward? Steve looks at the raw materials he needs to create his project. For this, he will need wood, stone, glass, glowstone from the surrounding environment he's in. Systems analysis. Understanding the needs of the client and document them is critical to maintain a focused attention to the desired end result first, before adding any other ideas that may distract from the big picture. Steve understands that he needs to build a large enough structure to house villagers close to the village he wants to create. This structure needs to fit the condition that it has enough space to allow villagers to breed and trade. This will promote the village's growth. Defining the system requirements. Steve needs at least a main building to start. If he wants to expand it, he'll be able to do this from the base of the initial idea. For this building to work, he needs to have doors for exit and entry and contain multiple rooms. These rooms need hallways between them to stay connected to each other. These hallways should also allow each room to reach the entrance and exit. This building needs to hold at least 2 villagers to a room to facilitate breeding. The total space for the structure needs to be able to handle possibility for expansion. There also needs to be enough space for agriculture, horticulture to sustain growth of the new villagers. Gathering information. This is an investigative phase of finding out details for the project. Steve is now on the hunt to find the nearest forest, to know where he can gather wood from, and find the nearest quarry or stone deposit so he can gather some cobblestone. Prioritizing requirements. Making sense of the requirements and breaking it down into the stages of what needs to be completed first, second, and so forth until its completion. Steve now needs to look at the architecture of the building and critically come to an understanding of what will facilitate a successful end result. What is the right size of building to house the required amount of villagers? What size will promote the most functionality? Will appearance matter to the villagers? Are the quantity of rooms more important than the quality of rooms? Generating alternatives. Creatively coming up with different approaches to meet the requirements of the new system. To generate a viable solution for this project, Steve needs to build many individual building structures for research and development. He later figures that creating a hotel is the best option for the budgeted time and resources. Prototypes. Prototyping to create a working model of the new system. Now that Steve knows the kind of structure he needs to build, now he needs to look at the size of the rooms. He will build multiple rooms of different sizes to test which is the most efficient with space to house the villagers. He needs to ensure the integrity of the hotel building by having efficient management of space by prototyping the room sizes for the hotel before building it inside. This will error check and single out the best option for facilitating the villagers. Review recommendations with management. Typically, one would be doing a project where there is a president of a company with executives and of the like branching out. This is your time to shine with all the research that has been gathered and present now solutions for management to give the thumbs up or thumbs down on. Steve isn't doing this project for anyone, so he has no management he has to answer to. So he's all in for his brilliant plan. After creating the prototype buildings, he feels that a room that has a space of 2 blocks by 3 blocks by 3 blocks is the best size room for the best results. System design. Design solutions based on requirements and decisions from the analysis stage. Taking in all that he had learned from the planning phase at the SDLC, Steve will now build a hotel that is 12 by 5 by 21 blocks in size. This hotel building will have up to 12 rooms that are 2 by 3 by 3 blocks. Design, application, architecture, and network. This stage, we are now creating the blueprint for the project and the back-end details of making the architecture work seamlessly. For his project, Steve has a clear space for the building of the hotel and built paths near the other village buildings to ensure he has access to the inner workings of the village network. Design user interface, or also known as the UI. This is looking at what the client sees on the front end of the program and how the client interacts with the new system in place. For this project, Steve uses the local birchwood, sand, and some coal to create the rooms of birchwood with a window and door. Each room has their own personal lighting for comfort at night. And for ease of traffic flow of people, the hallways have been built by 2 blocks by 5 blocks of space from wall to wall. Design system interface. Designing the system interface is looking at the overall big picture of what the new system's feel and look will be. Looking carefully at Steve's masterpiece, we can see it fits the bill. Design and integrate database. Designing and integrating the database is important to keep up with error logs and other information to improve and sustain the new system. Taking a villager headcount, Steve can now store any issues or improvements to his new system and see how well the solution is doing during the short-term and long-term period. Design system controls. Designing system control areas and/or access points in the system to minimize errors in the code for the new system. In Steve's case, he will have doors that will let villagers in and out of the rooms and in and out of the hotel building. Building appropriate staircases for ease of movement is also integrated, having a fence around the hotel to keep the villagers safely in the confines of the space. Sometimes it's better that way. System implementation. Verify and test. Verifying and testing is when you sit back and wait and see if the new system runs into any bugs or unforeseen situations where it can crash. You're hoping for the best, but it's better to go through the system entirely to make sure it retains its integrity. Converting the data. Steve will begin his tally of child villagers and start looking at the data. Train users and document the system. Training the users on how to use the new system and documenting it so that all the software components can be understood. Install the system and make it live. The moment of truth arrives and the system is now fully functional and ready to be used. System support and security. Maintaining the system. Steve needs to keep a regular upkeep of the building to make sure that the villagers are still inside and still doing their own thing. Enhancing the system. Steve can choose to enhance his new system by adding more rooms or floors to adapt to the growth. He can also find ways to improve the amenities or expand the agriculture and horticulture. He can create some redstone lighting so that everywhere it's well lit at any night. Even dedicated technology or crafting room with furnaces, combiners, etc. All for the sake of making something awesome. Supporting users. Finding ways to connect with users of the software to improve its system controls or other components. This is also good for troubleshooting issues with users. Steve will be happy to know we helped out and added some security to his hotel. I think it will inspire him to use more iron for structural integrity and security.